They laughed at the poor dishwasher, but her unbelievable talent left them in tears. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The kitchen hummed with the rhythm of clattering plates and sizzling pans. I stood in the corner, scrubbing away at crusty pots, knee-deep in soap and shattered dreams. The laughter rang in my ears like a cruel melody, the other staff not even bothering to hide their disdain. Look at her, they sneered, a dishwasher with hopes of a stage. But they didn't see the truth hidden beneath the suds. I had a voice. Not just any voice, the kind that could peel paint off walls. I'd catch whispers of it when I was alone, spinning melodies into the steam that rose from the scalding water. It was my sanctuary. Yet here I was, surrounded by a cacophony of doubt and mockery, their sharp words cutting deeper than any knife. Back home, my tiny apartment could barely contain my dreams. My mother used to sing softly to me, her voice a silky balm over the rough edges of our poverty. She believed I was destined for more, a singer, a star. But last year, she fell sick, and those dreams shriveled under the weight of medical bills. I had to work. I had to survive. My best friend, Jess, often came in for a late-night cup of coffee, her presence a warm light amid the unending darkness. You've got to show them, she encouraged. Your voice deserves to be heard. But each time, I hesitated, fear coiling around my heart like a vice. What if I failed? What if I was laughed at even louder? Then one night, amidst the clanging of silverware and bitter laughter, fate intervened. A couple of regulars lingered, whisked away by their own joy, and caught me singing softly to myself, the notes spilling from my lips like droplets of rain. Suddenly, the clinking of glasses stopped. Silence swallowed the room. My heart raced, leaping against my ribs, begging for more air. But before I could process it, the owner, a brash man with a booming voice, cut through the stillness. Who gives a damn about a dishwasher's dreams? The comment hung heavy in the air, stinging like vinegar on an open wound. My chest tightened, blood pulsing in my ears, drowning out everything but his laughter. And then, just as the laughter began to swell around me, something surged within. A wild, untamed courage. I opened my mouth, my voice flooding the room once more, shattering expectations like glass. The disbelieving eyes around me widened, shock freezing their features. Would my voice break the chains of their judgment? Would it transform their laughter into tears? Just as the first note spiraled up into the air, a different sound erupted, a sudden crash. The back door swung open violently, and the chaos unfolded in a heartbeat. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference, let's connect. The crash echoed through the kitchen, shattering the fragile moment I had begun to claim as my own. My heart seized as I glanced toward the door, fingers still stained with dish soap, the lingering notes of my voice fading into the clamor of plates and unspooled laughter. A figure stumbled through the doorway, a young man, disheveled and breathing heavily, eyes wild, a deep fear painting his features. He was a stranger, but his presence carried with it a weight that seemed to bend time. Help! He gasped, clutching the doorframe as if it were the only thing keeping him upright. There's been an accident. The customers turned, confusion spreading like ripples in still water. Whispers of intrigue and concern dipped lower, momentarily drowning out the previous mockery. I watched, caught between my unfinished song and this urgent plea. My heart pounded in my ears, ripping me back to reality. What happened? One of the waitresses asked, her voice sharper than a knife. A car crash. A little girl, she's hurt, he stammered, his breath coming in frantic bursts. We need people to help, we need. Without thinking, I stepped forward. I didn't know how I could help, had no medical training, no ability to fix broken bones, but the desperation in his eyes ignited something within me. The need to act, to do something meaningful, surged stronger than the fear that held me hostage in the moments before. The owner looked at me incredulously, disbelief knitting his brow deeper. "What are you doing?" "Leave this to the professionals," he barked, though his words held little weight against the chaos unfolding. The other staff hesitated, but I felt the pull of a compelling inevitability. Then Jess burst through the kitchen door, coffee still steaming in her hands. Her eyes widened, and before anyone could find their footing, she tossed the cups aside and rushed over. "I'm coming with you," she declared, resolute. There was a spark of solidarity in that moment, a soft light glimmering through the dark clouds enveloping us. We rushed together into the night, fear twisting through me but determination fueling my steps. The streetlights flickered overhead like fleeting dreams, illuminating the chaos as we reached the scene. Several onlookers had gathered, their faces pale and worried. A small crumpled figure lay on the ground, and it was as if time slowed. My breath caught, a lump filling my throat at the sight of the little girl, her chest rising and falling with weak, shallow breaths. Panic surged through the crowd, but amidst the chaos, there was also a ripple of kindness. Someone had draped their jacket over her tiny body, shielding her from the chill of the night. That I knelt, instinctively seeking to comfort, to offer a gentle presence amidst the rushing tension. "You're going to be okay," I whispered, though my own voice trembled. I felt that little hand flutter beneath the weight of the jacket and grabbed it, squeezing gently, trying to push warmth and strength into her. "Help is coming." In that moment, I could only hope. Hope that the doctors were on their way, hope that she could feel my presence, hope that the world had room for tenderness amid its brutality. "Why aren't they here yet?" Jess murmured beside me, her voice tight with anxiety. "Hold on, sweet girl," I pressed, even as I fought against the growing knot of despair coiling in my chest. I was losing myself in this moment, wrapped in the delicate threads of vulnerability. If I could find my voice in song, could I find it now amidst this heartbreak, give it life in the face of fear? But just as I felt a flicker of hope rise, the sirens wailed in the distance, cutting through the air like a beacon. Relief washed over me. Help was on the way, yet something inside me tightened. I felt a strange twist in my gut, an unsettling thought: if fate could throw me into the depths of despair so easily, how could I trust it to carry me out? As the ambulance pulled up, more voices filled the space. Familiar faces pushed through the crowd, drawn by the commotion. Inexplicably, I locked eyes with the owner from the restaurant, whose laughter had chased me into turmoil just hours before. He stood rooted, his bravado stripped bare by raw vulnerability. That moment became surreal, fear and anger entwined, battling not only for my soul but those around me. I realized, in that suspended second, that I was not just the dishwasher anymore. Perhaps there was more strength within me than I ever knew yet. In that revelation, also lay the fear of what I might have to sacrifice to truly find my voice. And as the paramedics rushed forward, lifting the girl with gentle precision, my heart raced in a new direction. What if this was the beginning, the turning point? A small, fragile hope flickered against the darkness, but before I could dare to chase it, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I retrieved it, glancing down. The screen lit up with a message from my estranged father. "Meet me. We need to talk." A chill ran down my spine, and just like that, the weight of unfinished matters pressed back down heavy upon my chest. With whispered dreams and tangled connections swirling around me, I realized the path ahead glimmered with uncertainty, teasing me with the unknown. And as the lights of the ambulance flickered against the night, I made a silent promise: I would find my voice, no matter what that journey would demand. The sirens faded into the distance, replaced by the gentle hum of the crowd murmuring in disbelief. I remained at the curb, still kneeling where the girl had lain, my heart heavy and full of tension. Jess stood beside me, her brow furrowed in concern, and I could feel the fear radiating from her. My own fear felt like an anchor, pulling me deeper into a whirlpool of uncertainty. "What do you think he wants?" Jess asked softly, her words punctuated by the tremor in her voice. I had almost forgotten about the message on my phone, the impending confrontation with my father looming like an unwelcome shadow, shattering the fragile calm we had fought to create. Swallowing hard, I shrugged, unable to find the words. "I don't know," I admitted. "After all this time, maybe he doesn't even care." "Or maybe he does," Jess countered, her voice steady. "People change, you know. We're all capable of redemption." Her eyes flicked nervously to mine, searching for reassurance. "You don't have to face him alone," the sincerity in her voice warmed me, planting a small seed of courage that took root against the uncertain backdrop of my reality. But doubt curled around it, reminded me of the painful history that clung to our relationship. What if he had come to bring more hurt instead of healing? Before I could respond, I felt an arm wrap around my shoulders, and my gaze lifted to meet the concerned eyes of my boss, the owner of the restaurant. "Hey," he said quietly, his typical bravado now absent. "You did a good job tonight." I blinked at him, taken aback by the unexpected acknowledgement. He was kind in that moment, breaking through my vulnerability, a rare glimpse of understanding beneath the furious facade he had always worn. "Thanks," I managed, not fully grasping how to articulate the swell of emotions that churned within me. My heart ached, a mix of gratitude and disbelief lingering in the air like smoke from a snuffed candle. Just then, the murmurs escalated as the crowd shifted, letting an older woman through. She knelt beside me, her silver hair glowing under the soft light of the street lamp. "Is she all right?" she asked, her voice soft yet strong, like knit yarns woven together. I don't know," I stammered, looking back at the empty spot where the girl had been moments before, now only a grim memory. "They took her." The weight of helplessness crashed over me again, like an incoming tide that I was unprepared to battle. "Just breathe," the woman said, placing a gentle hand on my arm. "You did what you could." Her eyes shimmered with a warmth that felt like a comforting blanket in the cold night air. In the midst of our shared anxiety, I clenched her hand tightly, seeking solace from the very thing I had thought might drown me entirely. And yet, while the kindness from this stranger seeped into my spirit, my mind chased the remnants of this night, the chaos, aching hearts, and impossible choices. Inside me flickered a tension between the hope that had broken through my despair and the fear of what it would mean to confront my father, the man who had once shattered my dreams. "That we should get back," Jess said, her voice a whisper, cautious as if it were a fragile echo in the night. "You'll need space to think before you replied." As I nodded in agreement, I felt the pull of her support grounding me, merging with the warmth from the stranger. Why was it that amidst pain, even fleeting moments of reassurance could bloom? I hadn't expected it to fill the gaps left behind by loss and separation. With heavy steps, we walked back towards the restaurant, the chaos fading into the backdrop of the night as the comforting aroma of fried food and home-cooked dishes washed over us. But as I stepped through the familiar doorway, that tiny ember of hope flickered weakly. My phone buzzed again, a sudden jolt that drowned out the comforting sounds around us. Heart racing, I retrieved it, staring at the screen, my pulse thrumming in my ears. Another message from my father lit up. "Please. It's important." That uncertainty clawed at me. Jess lingered nearby, her gaze locking onto mine, silently supporting the weight of my decision. I had a choice to make: continue standing in the shadow of fear or step into the unknown, possibly opening a door to resolutions long overdue. And just as an echo of hope pulsed beneath my resolve, another figure appeared in the doorway, a haggard girl I hadn't recognized before. She looked at me, her face ashen. "It's about the girl," she gasped, breathless. "You need to know what happened." The chill that had settled in the pit of my stomach reawakened, and the ground seemed to shift beneath me. My pulse quickened, uncertainty blanketing my thoughts, and in that moment of dread, I felt the full weight of my choices crashing against me, like waves against a weathered shore. What lay ahead? I stood frozen at the entrance of the restaurant, the ongoing hum of life inside it reduced to a distant echo as the haggard girl's words reverberated through my mind. "You need to know what happened." There was a desperation in her tone that pulled at the strings of my heart, but fear twisted in my gut, paralyzing me. Jess stepped forward, concern etched into her features. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice gentle yet firm, ready to step into whatever dark abyss loomed just beyond the threshold. The girl raised her eyes, and I caught a glimpse of something unnameable lurking within their depths, a combination of hurt and urgency, as if dearest secrets pressed heavily on her chest. The paramedics, they found something. Something that connects to her, the girl stammered, hurriedly glancing around as if she feared being overheard. I was there when they took her away. I saw it. You need to hear this. A shiver traveled down my spine as I exchanged a look with Jess, a silent agreement passing between us. Come in, I urged, gesturing for the girl to step inside the restaurant, my heart racing as dread coiled tighter around my chest. As we moved into the dimly lit space, I felt the burden of unanswered questions weighing heavy in the air. With each step I took, I sensed that fragments of truth lay just out of reach, waiting to be uncovered. The warmth of the room enveloped me, but it felt like a fading memory against the chill of uncertainty. The bustling sounds of clinking dishes and laughter felt starkly incongruent to the knot forming in my stomach. Once we settled in a quiet corner, Jess leaned forward, her expression a mixture of sympathy and determination. What did you see? Please, you can trust us, she whispered, her voice low and commanding like a gentle plea. With a shaky breath, the girl nodded, her hands trembling as she began to divulge the heart of her revelation. I didn't know her well, she confessed, her gaze lowering. But I'd seen her around. She was always with that group, a troubled crowd. They were too loud, too angry. And then one night, they did something to her. I saw them hurt her. I was too scared to help. Shock reverberated through me like a thunderclap as my breath hitched in my throat. Hurt her? What do you mean? I pressed. They were scary high. And I watched as they got into a fight. She tried to walk away, but they dragged her back, shouting. That's when I called the cops, but I didn't know what happened afterward. I swear, I thought she'd gotten away. I only found out later. Her voice trailed off, and I could see the anguish washing over her face, guilt mingling with fear. My heart raced, torn between the urge to understand and the rising tide of fury that surged through me. Why didn't you come forward sooner? I blurted out, my voice harsher than I intended. Because I was afraid, she admitted, tears pooling in her eyes. I thought they might come after me too. I thought I could just forget it, let it go. But after what I saw tonight, I can't keep quiet any longer. The gravity of her words hit me like a freight train, forcing me to confront what I had kept tucked away, like a dark secret. The uncertainty morphed into a volatile mix of anger and helplessness. Here we were, surrounded by laughter and warmth, yet just beyond that facade lay a world filled with pain that shattered the very people we brushed past every day. Jess's hand found mine under the table, and although fear gripped me, her touch reminded me I wasn't alone in this. Well, figure it out, she vowed, her eyes unwavering as she squeezed my hand tighter. But what could we do? We were just two people consumed by our own struggles, caught up in the swell of a storm that reached far beyond our understanding. I glanced back at the girl, still shaken, yet propelled by an unseen force of duty. An understanding had formed. We had all been witnesses to something larger than us. It made me wonder if I could harness our courage to bring this darkness into the light. As my thoughts spiraled, my phone buzzed again, my father's name flashing across the screen like a beacon in the night. Something in my chest twisted painfully as I let the tension rise, knowing I had to choose between unearthing the truth or finally confronting my past. Together, Jess and I shared an apprehensive glance, the unspoken question stretching out like a chasm between us. Were we ready to plunge into the depths of pain together, to square off against the yoke of our family's fears? But before we could voice our intentions, a flash of movement caught my eye. A familiar figure darted into the restaurant, one of the girl's friends, his expression wrought with dread as his eyes scanned the room. Lily! He cried, his voice fracturing the fragile air. We have to go now. They're coming. A rush of adrenaline surged through me, drowning out the mounting questions that had so easily locked me into a cage of indecision. Who's coming? I demanded, fear anchoring me to the ground. Ignoring my question, he grabbed her hand, dragging her toward the exit. You can't be here. They'll find you. Everything collapsed around me in a blur of confusion, the memories of the girl, the messages from my father, and the aching decision of whether to act or question what lay ahead. My heart thundered with uncertainty, and as the door swung shut behind them, I suddenly found myself standing at a precipice ready to plunge into a world of darkness hiding just beyond the threshold. "Jess," I breathed, the urgency igniting every nerve in my body. "We have to follow them." And with a shared breath, we darted into the night, sparks of hope fluttering wildly against the tide of fear and unanswered questions that awaited us. What would we find lurking in the shadows? The path ahead shimmered with uncertainty but illuminated a growing truth that I could cling to. The end of one chapter also heralded the beginning of another, filled with strife and revelation. The neon lights of the street pulsated against the dark canvas of the night, casting elongated shadows across the pavement as Jess and I hurried after the fleeing figures. My heart raced, a wild drumbeat in tandem with our hurried footsteps. The air was thick with anticipation and dread, the chill of the unknown wrapping around us like a suffocating shroud. "Do you think they'll be okay?" Jess asked, her breath coming in sharp bursts. The worry etched in her features made my heart ache. She had stepped into this mess by my side without hesitation. "I don't know," I admitted, glancing back at the restaurant we had just left. It felt like a lifetime ago already. "But we can't just leave them. Whatever is happening, we need to find out." As we rounded a corner, the alleyway opened up into a darker expanse, and I caught sight of the girl Lily and her friend pressing against the wall. They were speaking urgently, their voices barely audible over the distant thrum of the city. "Stay back," Jess whispered, pulling me behind a dumpster. "We can't let them see us." I nodded, though every part of me wanted to leap into the fray. I leaned in, trying to catch snippets of their conversation, but all that reached my ears was the muted urgency of their tones. Suddenly, the tense atmosphere electrified with the sound of rapid footsteps approaching. My throat went dry as a group of youths emerged, their faces illuminated by the street lights, a mix of anger and panic mingling in their expressions. They were part of the same hurtful crowd the girl had spoken about. The realization sent an icy shiver down my spine. "What do we do?" I hissed, instinctively grasping Jess's hand tighter. "We need a plan," she whispered back, her eyes darting around us. "We can't let them hurt her again, Lily." One of the boys shouted, his voice grating against the silence like nails on a chalkboard. "You can't run forever. Get back here." Panic surged in my chest as I watched Lily and her friend look toward us, anxiety radiating from their postures. It was a flare of fear that ignited my heart, almost urging me to intervene, to scream for help, to lend my voice to the chorus of chaos unfolding. But Jess squeezed my hand, her steady presence grounding me. Then, without warning, Lily burst from her hiding place, her back straightening with newfound strength. "I'm not afraid of you," she shouted, and even through the fear, there was a spark of defiance that caught my breath. I thought of how often I had hidden underneath convenient excuses, cloaked in insecurities. Her courage lit something within me, as if she were throwing down a gauntlet. It was a reminder that we all faced our demons, but how many of us chose to rise up and confront them? Before I could react, the crowd descended on her, voices mixing into a cacophony of anger. "You're going to regret this." One of them spat as he lunged toward her. "Get away from her." I shouted, instinctively stepping forward, my heart pounding in my ears. Jess' grip on my arm tightened, but I refused to be restrained. My voice broke through the chaos, a desperate plea that sought to cut through the tension. But just as quickly, I was shoved back, colliding into Jess. "No!" she gasped, the fear echoing in her eyes. "We need to find a way to help her without exposing ourselves." As if summoned by our shared determination, the world around us shifted. A flicker of movement caught my eye as a woman emerged from the shadows. Though she appeared older, her presence radiated strength and something inexplicably a fierceness, like a mother bear guarding her young. "Enough!" she barked, stepping forward. "You think this is what you want? To scare a girl who has already been through too much? This is not the way." This unexpected ally caught the attention of the group, momentarily disrupting their frenzy, but I sensed their hostility simmering beneath the surface. "Get lost, lady," one of the boys growled. "This is none of your business." "Oh, but it is my business," the woman retorted, resolute. You think you can wreak havoc on this city without consequence? Think again. There was an undeniable heat in her words, a flicker of authority that wrestled against the aggression of the boys. Lily looked at me, her eyes alive with hope yet still laced with fear. "Help us," she cried out, her voice shaking. "Please," I felt the weight of her plea wash over me like a tidal wave. The choice lay before me, crisp and clear. At that moment, I stepped forward alongside that indefatigable woman, our fates intertwining in a dance of borrowed courage. "Leave her alone," I shouted, the challenge rippling through the air, even as trepidation battled within me. The boys stopped, momentarily taken aback, the tension palpable. Just as I thought we had a chance to shift the tide, the woman turned toward me, her eyes shimmering with a knowing light. "Sometimes bravery is just as infectious as fear," she murmured under her breath, and it stirred something in my chest, a flickering ember of strength urging me to stand my ground. Yet, before I could muster a more compelling argument, the moment shattered when one of the boys lunged toward our small group, driven by rage. Instinct kicked in, and I felt Jess pulling me back just as the boy tackled Lily's friend to the ground. "Run!" Jess shouted, her voice laced with urgency, and as if the world had plunged into slow motion, everything around me faded into chaos, the vibrant colors of the night smudged with fear. And that heartbeat, dread and determination clashed violently inside me, and as Jess pulled on my arm, I realized sometimes, even in the darkest moments, we can find a flicker of light. Would it be enough to carry us forward, to untangle the truth waiting for us beyond this fervent night? The night pressed against us, thick with possibilities, bearing witness to our next choice. And as I took a deep breath, the air caught in my throat as the unexpected vision of a familiar face emerged from the shadows ahead. My gut twisted with unease, and suddenly, everything I thought I knew hung precariously in the balance. The air crackled with an energy that felt misaligned, the chaos of the moment collided with an unsettling sense of anticipation swirling inside me as I caught sight of the figure emerging from the shadows. It was Clara, my childhood friend, the girl whose laughter had always brought a glimmer of warmth and light to even the dullest days. But here, tonight, under the weight of the dark, she looked wildly different. Gone was the innocent sparkle in her eyes, replaced by a look of guarded resilience that seemed almost foreign. "Clara!" I exclaimed, part relief, part confusion. I had not seen her in years, and to see her here among this turmoil sent a rush of emotions crashing through me like waves against a jagged shore. Her gaze locked onto mine, and in a mere heartbeat, recognition turned to something deeper. Anxiety etched her features, regret shadowing the once familiar curve of her smile. The ruckus around us faded into a distant hum, and in that fragile moment, the chaos out there, the boys, Lily, the aggressive undertow of the night felt irrelevant. All that mattered was the unspoken history we carried between us. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Trying to help." "Just like you," she replied, glancing around with wary eyes. There was an urgency in her tone, like raw steel honed for a vital purpose. "Help who?" Jess chimed in, her voice steady yet uncertain. "Lily," Clara replied, her gaze darting toward the fray before us. "I've seen what they can do. It's worse than you think." My heart thudded in my chest as the pieces began to assemble like a puzzle, with corners flickering toward a horrifying image I wasn't yet ready to comprehend. "It's not just bullying," Clara said, her voice tightening. It's about control. They think they can break people." The words hung in the air, coiling around us like smoke. My mind raced back to everything I had seen in this city, witnessed for too long, untouched until now, not from a distance but right here in the thick of it, ready to become part of the dark narrative. "Clara," I began, but before I could articulate my thoughts further, the group around us erupted in a raucous shout. The boys were circling Lily and her friend like wolves drawn to a meal. "Enough games!" one of the leaders bellowed, venom dripping from his words. "You think you can stand up to us? You'll regret it." A chill raced down my spine, awareness washing over me. This was no longer just about defending Lily, it was about survival, of spirit, of pride, of everything that dared to stand against this violence. "Clara," I breathed, clutching her arm, my mind racing. What do we do? We need to draw them away, she replied, her eyes steely with determination. Distract them while Lily and her friend find safety. They need to get out of here. A glimmer of hope sparked in my chest. Jess, can you help? I asked, searching her face. Her eyes filled with earnest resolve, more empowered than I'd ever seen. Let's do it, she replied, and together we turned to face the noise, the heart of the storm brewing ominously before us. Hey! Clara shouted, stepping into their line of sight. Is this what you want? To look pathetic chasing after someone who can stand up for herself? Their heads snapped toward us, surprise etched on their faces. It was our chance, a flicker of time that offered a breath of possibility. Who are you? One of the boys snarled, surprised but defensive, too taken aback by our sudden intervention. Just someone who knows the truth. You're scared, Clara taunted fiercely, her voice unfaltering. You get off on terrorizing girls instead of acting like real men. Pathetic. My heart pounded as I glanced back at Lily and her friend, who, with all the adrenaline flowing through me, still clutched each other in fear, uncertainty anchoring them in place. I knew they needed a moment. Jess, now! I yelled, rushing toward the boys alongside Clara. My heart sung to the rhythm of fear, but I pushed forward, embracing the cascading wave of adrenaline fueling my resolve. Go! Jess shouted, propelling Lily and her friend toward the alley. That had once felt so dark, now momentarily illuminated by our act of defiance. As bewilderment flickered in the boys' eyes, they hesitated, their aggressiveness faltering just long enough for our plan to unfold. But even amidst the fury of adrenaline and resolve, Sylvia's grip on authority slipped momentarily as one of the boys lunged toward me, reaching out with desperation to reclaim control. My world stopped as I faced him, the raging chaos fading into a muted tableau of vibrant colors and blurring edges. Just when I felt I would crumble under the increasingly hostile tension, Jess shouted, breaking through the haze of fear. Watch out, she yelled, but the warning came too late. In a split second, time stretched, and I was thrown backward, colliding with the dumpster's cold metal edge. Pain radiated sharply, yet within, a flicker of fury ignited. How could I let this happen? How could I stand still when so many others didn't have the privilege to choose their battles? As I struggled to regain my footing, Clara's unyielding voice cut through the spark of solidarity edged into something more, something that had been brewing since we'd locked eyes, a fierce yearning to protect. And then, just as quickly, it took a gut-wrenching turn. With sudden clarity, I saw the boy's face as he loomed closer, his expression morphing into something more, a familiar flicker that sent a cold shiver racing through me. It was Alex, the boy who used to sit at the picnic table at our childhood school. The boy who had laughed with us under the sun. No. I gasped, my voice barely escaping as if I had just caught the fragmented pieces of a puzzle that had never meant to fit. Alex's gaze met mine, laced with shock and something unnameable. And in that tangled moment, as everything spun out of control, I realized there was so much more at stake. And sometimes, the enemy wears a familiar face. Are you with them? I demanded. And the question hung between us like a chasm waiting for an answer, the weight of 1,000 lost friendships shadowing over the ensuing silence. Little did I know, the truth of that night held a mirror to my own fiercer revelation of guilt and connection that would ripple through the lives intertwined in this fractured world. As the crowd swelled with uproar, the urgency to choose a side became unbearably real, binding me to a fate I didn't entirely understand. The air was thick with a palpable tension as I stared into Alex's eyes, searching for the soul that had once brought laughter to our sunny childhood playground. Now, his face had hardened under the aggressive guise of a boy who wore power like an armor. This isn't you. I shouted, desperation clawing at my voice. You don't have to do this. For a fleeting moment, a flicker of recognition sparked in his eyes, but it was swiftly swallowed by a surge of bravado. You don't know anything, Sarah. You think just because you're caught up in this, he gestured to the chaos around us, anger bubbling below. You think you have a say? Before I could respond, Clara stepped forward, her stance unwavering. You're choosing the wrong side, Alex. Remember who you used to be. This isn't strength, it's cowardice. His bravado faltered, if only for an instant, glancing at the boys who had once been our friends. A flicker of doubt crossed his face, but it was quickly masked with anger again. The familiar warmth of our childhood slipped further away, and intimacy was lost beneath layers upon layers of fear and loyalty to the chaotic throng. Shut up. He shouted, but the desperation in his tone spoke of a conflict hidden just beneath the surface. I couldn't let him retreat entirely, locked in that place between the boy he used to be and the monster they all claimed to be. You don't have to pretend to be someone you're not. You have a choice. You can still walk away. In that moment, the uncertainty coursing through the crowd turned into something darker. The boys moved forward, sensing the shift, their hostility sharpening and drawing closer until we were all caged in a vortex of unbridled anger and invisible pain. Then, just as I braced myself for the inevitable clash, Jess surged forward, dashing alongside me, glaring defiantly at the line of boys. You want us to be afraid, but we're not. This ends tonight. You think terror will keep your power? It's broken. We're not your playthings anymore. Her voice, strong and unwavering, erupted above the chaos, momentarily freezing our adversaries. That flickering hope ignited my resolve, and I stepped closer to Alex. Join us. You don't have to be part of this. Our eyes locked in that dizzying blur of emotions, confusion, anger, and underlying sorrow weaving a tapestry we couldn't comprehend. And what will it cost me, Sarah? He whispered, voice trembling, a hint of vulnerability cloaked beneath the fury. That's up to you. I pressed, my heart racing. I was teetering on the edge of something monumental, and it was too late to turn back. But look around. Is this really what you want? To terrorize those who've done nothing to you? At that moment, a wild cheer erupted from the boys behind him, but rather than invigorating him, it seemed to sap his will. The crowd began to close ranks, a violent wave surging forward, and the weight of despair that I felt pressed heavily against my lungs. Stop. A familiar voice rang out, cutting through the tension. I turned to see Lily, her posture shifting from fear to surprising strength as she stepped into the fray. If you want power, you won't find it here. She shouted. You think you're strong by attacking girls? Real strength comes from within, from lifting each other up, not tearing each other down. The commotion fell silent, the gravity of her words taking hold. For a split second, I could see clarity and conflict mingling in their eyes, indecision sparking as they grappled with the choice laid bare before them, but the moment was fleeting, the energy in the air shifted once again. A sneer slid across the face of one of the boys. You think you're safe because you speak a big game? It won't last. He took a menacing step forward, fists tightening, readying for confrontation. Something dark unfurled within myself, pooling with an energy that demanded resolution. You're nothing but a coward hiding behind fear. I shouted back, my heart racing with fury. Behind me, Clara placed a protective hand on my shoulder, her presence grounding me even as the situation swirled with an impending storm. But then, the unexpected happened. As a surge of escalating emotions ignited, the distance between us and the boys began to collapse unnervingly fast. Just then, a flicker from the alley caught my attention, a figure emerging that sent my heart racing even faster. Stop. The voice rang out familiar, authoritative. My breath hitched as I recognized the figure rushing forward. It was my father, his face lined with worry and fierce determination. What's happening here? Shock flooded through the gathering crowd, and the boys hesitated, the authority of expectation tumbling in the face of dissonance. Alex's face twisted, surprise mingling with something deeper, a flicker of regret. Before I could move, the boy I had once called a friend stepped toward my father, the conflict raging beneath. It's not what you think, he began, but my father cut him off. I've seen this kind of circle before, Alex. It's not bravery. You're strengthening a path that leads to destruction. Make the choice to step away. The tension was thick, new possibilities trembling at the edges as his words precariously hung in the air. But just as I thought the energy might break, a sudden shout erupted from the heart of the chaos, drawing every eye to the Centera flash of something bright, wildly unexpected. In one heartbeat, the atmosphere shifted again, and everything I associated with our conflict took a sharp turn towards the unfathomable, help. It screamed, crashing through the rising tide of uncertainty, infecting the air with dread, caught between conflicting loyalties, friendships fraying like thin threads. The only clarity I felt was the powerful implication that in this fight for control the real battle had only just begun. The boy's voice echoed through the alley, tearing through the tension like glass shattering. Help! The urgent cry froze the atmosphere. It was neither a plea nor a warning, it was a desperate call that resonated deep within every heart present. I can't believe this is happening. Someone yelled from the crowd, pulling the gaze of the boys momentarily toward the source, just a flash of confusion before they turned back to Alex and the confrontation at hand. But my heart raced in tandem with the fear surging through me, its rhythm a loud drum in my ears as I scanned the surrounding area for its origin. Who's calling? I shouted, straining my voice against the tidal wave of chaos. Then, I saw her, a small figure against the brick facade of the building, a girl I recognized from school, clutching her side in unmistakable pain. Panic fluttered in my chest as I caught a glimpse of her pale face, twisted in anguish. Please! She gasped again, her face glistening with sweat and fear. Faith, are coming for us. I need help, why didn't you say something sooner? Clara whispered, terror edging her voice. The crowd shifted, uncertainty mixing with concern as whispers flowed like a swift current, and the authority of Alex faltered under the weight of this new revelation. Are you okay? Lily called out, moving forward instinctively, but the girl fell to her knees, breath hitching in her throat, cutting off the direction of the unfolding faces. My heart dropped. What kind of desperation had brought her to this moment? Who's coming? Alex demanded, and out of nowhere, a glimmering desperation returned to his eyes. It was at once the boy I had known, the friend I had longed for, and the enemy he had turned into. Tell us, a shuddering breath escaped her lips as she stammered, the others, there are too many. If he just wanted to prove something. As fear and realization poured into the collective consciousness of our group, it felt like a curtain had been lifted, revealing the dark underbelly of the chaos that had ensnared us. The rumors had been true, there was a greater threat looming over USA, darkness piercing through the fragile facade we had been tearing through. What do you mean? My voice cracked, stepping forward towards her vulnerable form. Tell us who it is, boys, she gasped. Not just the ones you see, there's a group forming, a gang. They think they can control us, that we're nothing. They've been watching and waiting. But before she could finish, the shadows shifted again, and from further down the alley, a rustling noise broke the uncertain quiet. It was followed by laughter, the kind that bubbled up from somewhere deep, tainted and unrecognizable. Look who we've found. A sneering voice echoed, pulling us toward the darkness with a magnetic force. The air grew heavy with hostility as another wave of boys, dressed in darker clothes, emerged from the shadows, and I knew then, we were outnumbered. Alex, I started, unsure of what instinct urged me to reach out to him again. You were chosen for something better. We can't let them win. We can't let them take us down. But instead of anger, a deep conflict stirred inside him. What do you expect me to do, Sarah? Choose a side. At that moment, clarity enveloped me. My heart fought for him, for the children we once were. You're not just one of them. You can make a difference. The words burst forth with desperation and urgency. A flicker danced back to life in his eyes, and amidst the fear swirling between us, a fragile thread of hope emerged. Suddenly, I heard a loud crash, distracting everyone momentarily. The boys at the forefront of the alley turned sharply, and my pulse quickened when another figure burst through the crowd. It was Jess. What are we waiting for? She yelled, her voice a clarion call brimming with unyielding determination. We can't let them take any more. Her presence cut through the thick fog of uncertainty that had enveloped us all like a blanket of dread. That we stand together. Lily echoed, stepping firmly beside Jess, her resolve swelling like an unyielding tide. Fight back. Clara added, unshaken by the looming threat. A strange blend of bravery and fear surged through us, alighting a fierce ember deep within my chest. The carousel of conflict waged on, but this time it felt different. Slowly, like warm rays peeking through a turbulent sky, the others around me began to step forward. Some boys faltered, unsure of how to react, glancing past the walls they'd built. Then I saw Ida hand reaching out tentatively from Alex's side, finally choosing to connect rather than sever. I didn't ask for this, he murmured, his voice barely audible. And just like that, the moment crashed into an impasse, a millisecond of realization emerging before all clarity devolved into chaos again as the new group of boys rushed toward us, their eyes wild with adrenaline, together. I cried out, as fear entwined with the resolve clawing its way to the surface. Somehow, in this swirling storm, a glimmer of hope flickered alive. This could be the change we needed, but as the walls began to tremble with impending confrontation, the truth that swept through my thoughts was stark. The real battle for our souls was just beginning, and I had no idea who would emerge from it intact. There was a reckoning awaiting all of us in the shadows, and in that haunting moment, I could feel the tides turning into something far more dangerous than we had ever anticipated. The chaos erupted like a storm, the air thick with the weight of indecision and fear. I watched as the boys surged forward, a tide of wild energy fueling their aggression. Yet, in that maelstrom of uncertainty, I felt something stir within me, a primal instinct clamoring for survival, for unity. Together. The word echoed through me, shaping itself into something tangible. I grasped it tight, feeling it intertwine with my friends' voices that had risen above the fray. But even as we stood shoulder to shoulder, my heart ached for Alex. It was like watching a part of myself torn away with every moment he hesitated. I could see the turmoil etched on his face, the clashing ghosts of loyalty and fear dancing behind his eyes. I understood well, he was caught between worlds he never asked to inhabit, yet here we were waiting for him to choose, stay with me. I shouted, my voice hoarse yet insistent, reaching for him. We can't let them break us, not now. As the boys from the shadows approached, their sheriff-like bravado fading into a sinister smirk, I realized we had seconds to solidify our strength, to transform our uncertainty into action. Suddenly, out of the corner of my eye, I caught a brief flutter, a girl I hadn't noticed before, cowering near the entrance of the alley. She was almost hidden behind a dumpster, but her deep, dark eyes were wide, absorbing everything. Help! She whispered, her voice lost in the cacophony around us, but I felt the urgency in it crawl over my skin. Just as fear coursed through me, something else surged within me, a protective instinct. Get her! I screamed, aiming to rally our group, though it felt futile against the approaching tide of boys. We can't leave anyone behind. Just as Clara shot past to grab the girl's hand, the boys from the shadows lunged forward, their jeers crashing against our makeshift barrier. Look at this pathetic lot. One of them taunted, his laughter harsh, like nails scratching against metal. You really think you stand a chance? The challenge dripped with mockery, yet amidst my fear, an ember of anger ignited. You're not invincible. I shouted back, my heart hammering in rebellion. We fight for our lives, for each other. But as bravado slipped from my lips, I felt the truth behind it quaver outside of our voices. Doubt still whispered through the cracks in our resolve. The odds were against us, but before the darkness could devour us, a surge of energy erupted through our corner as Jess leaped forward. Together means something. She cried out, drawing strength from the depths of her spirit. They don't define us. With her words like lightning in the night, I saw a spark ignite in Alex as he finally stepped forward, a bridge between two worlds. Our eyes locked, and I saw the truth in them still believed. Let's show them, he murmured, the weight of his decision settling around us like a warm blanket. And just then, in the chaotic dance of fists and fear, the unfamiliar girl, so frightened yet resolute, struggled out from the shadows, fueled by instinct rather than intimidation. Run, now! She urged, her voice sharper than serrated glass as she pointed towards the exit. You have to escape. It's not safe here. Words cracked through me, but before I could voice any objections, the shadows behind her shifted again. A burly figure emerged, a boy larger than the rest, his presence looming like an avalanche ready to descend. His face distorted with malice, he aimed to unravel the fragile thread of hope we had meticulously spun. "Let's see how brave you are," he bellowed, preparing to charge into our group, and as he bolted forward, so did the reality that we were losing ground fast, together. I screamed once more, but I felt the tremors of panic gripping my heart. Had we united only to fracture again? The world around me slowed, eliciting a strange calm as I prepared to run. This wasn't just a fight for mere survival, this was life asserting itself, a defiance seeping through walls that had held us captive for too long. We darted in different directions, an urgent choreography of instinct and desperation, yet. In the midst of this frantic escape, I felt a hard grip on my arm. Turning, I faced Alex, his face strained but resolute, gripping me tightly. "No. We can't split up," he shouted against the chaos, panic pooling in his emerald eyes. "Don't leave me," and then I saw it, clear as day. The weight of his existence was tethered to mine. I was lost without him, caught in the tumults of friendship, love, and the unyielding dread of loss. Before I could reply, another figure barreled into our space, and as their presence breached the threshold connecting us, the truth cascaded down, heavy and shocking, betrayal enveloping my heart. "Alex," I gasped, realizing the true nature of the girl beside me as her eyes locked onto his. You know her," but before I could process the rush of revelations swirling around me, she grinned, a chilling smile that wrapped around the pounding fear of betrayal, and I knew, in that moment, everything was about to shatter once more. As chaos unfolded around us, a piercing scream sliced through the night. Only this time, it was ours. The dust of confrontation settled, but the air was still thick with anxiety as Jess and I stared wide-eyed at the girl beside Alex, the one who had just emerged from the shadows with a grin that felt sharper than any weapon. The world around us began to fade as my focus honed in on that unsettling smile. It felt like a mask slipping, revealing the truth that had long been buried beneath layers of innocence and familiarity. "Brianna?" Alex's voice quivered, hope and confusion mixing visibly on his face. It was a name I hadn't thought of in years, the kind gifted to me like a distant memory, a ghost of adolescence. Brianna had once been the spark in our friend group, quick with laughter but sometimes quick to throw her support behind the wrong cause. I hadn't thought she would resurface while standing on this precipice, with the stakes so high. "Missed you," she shot back, feigning sincerity yet cloaked in mockery. "And look at you, standing with the leftover dreams of your childhood." I could see the way he flinched at her words, the sting of betrayal seeping through their intimacy. My heart pounded in tandem with the thunder of lost trust, and before I knew it, something transformed inside me, an unfurling resoluteness that demanded to be acknowledged. "What are you doing here, Brianna?" I found my voice, steady and unwavering, despite the rapid beat of my pulse. "You're part of this?" She lifted a brow, almost amused, which infuriated me. "Oh, sweetheart, I'm just here to show him the real power." Each word was laced with venom. "You see, this isn't a fairy tale. You don't get to ride away into safety by playing the good guys night and day. Don't allow it." Fury flared up, edging towards a dangerous precipice of pure emotion. "You think you have power by standing here with these boys, threatening people who can't defend themselves? That's not strength, it's cowardice." Laughter rippled from the group alongside her, a grotesque mirror reflecting an insecurity none of us wanted to own. "Oh, but isn't it easier to be feared than to be vulnerable?" she quipped, her voice like silk hiding poison. "You think you're so brave? Look around you. They don't fear you, they pity you." In that moment, as I watched Alex wrestle with his loyalties, I felt the bottom drop out of my sanity. I thought of the girl we saw tonight, lying in the street, the ache of vulnerability that wrapped around her tiny body like a shroud. "Even if you're right, Brianna, that doesn't give you the right to hurt others. Why do you think we do it?" she sneered. "You think they're following me because of fear? No, it's because I'm not ashamed of my power. What are you so afraid of losing?" With those words, the truth crashed into me like an avalanche. We're afraid of becoming what you've become, someone who thrives in cruelty to feel a quick rush of strength. The clarity settled over me in perfect comprehension. But standing together means more than just strength, it's about love, a love that fights back. You clearly don't understand that. Brianna's smirk faltered, just briefly, as I saw the flicker of doubt flash across her eyes. And look where love has gotten you. In the middle of this mess. But it only fueled my intensity. It has brought us together. We're not playing a part, this is our life. My voice rang out, ringing in its own truth, rising above the dense fear that had tried to swallow us whole. It will always offer us more than fear ever could. Just then, another figure surged through the cluster, and with each beat of my heart, Jess' determination shone even brighter. Together! She yelled, echoing the unity we formed in a moment, and in it, she fused the parts of us that were once frayed. Rooted in the power of that proclamation, I stepped forward. Run, if you want, Brianna, leave with them. But we will not break. With whatever courage fueled my words, I thrust a fist into the air, wanting every ounce of emotion we had worked to gather in that moment to band together. For the first time, it felt as if we were standing between choices, staring down an oncoming storm as one. Brianna's eyes narrowed at my words, rage morphing into something almost unfathomable, but just as the tide of emotion swelled and began to crack, light from the street illuminated our faces, a stream of hope cutting through the looming confrontation, a gathering force beyond mere thought. A siren chimed in the distance, growing nearer, and Brianna's facade began to tremble again, fear splintering beneath the bravado. That is not your salvation. Alex shouted as he summoned strength from deep within, finally rising to his conscience as he moved to stand beside me, nostalgic yet transformed. This isn't how it has to end. And in that fragile moment, the sound of approaching sirens, which had once loomed over our chaos like a dark omen, transformed the undertow of our fear into a profound rush of validation that tethered us. In a fevered breath, clarity washed over me, arms raised high with defiance, our bond resonating with a new pulse. We stand as one, then. Together, against what they have tried to inflict, once and for all. With that roar resounding through the night, we solidified our formation, the barriers of doubt crumbling as we reclaimed the darkness. Brianna and her followers remained cemented in their fear, tied to a thrum of uncertainty as the sirens echoed triumphantly around us like scattered stars finally illuminating the night. That it was then I realized, sometimes realization unveils the quietest of revolutions, where hearts entwined became unstoppable tides, accepting that true strength doesn't arise from vulnerability alone but has roots embedded in unconditional camaraderie. All at once, the reign of chaos gave way, and in that heart-stopping breath, I felt the fragile divide shift. Perhaps we were all pieces of a shattered puzzle still battling our fears, but unified against the specter of despair struggling to engulf us completely. As the surge of sirens brightened the dark and hope settled its weight down upon us, Jess tightened her grip in mine, Alex's burning gaze carried a flicker of newfound respect, and together, we stood, unwavering as we faced whatever storm might come. I thought of the roads we'd traveled, of the dreams we'd dared to chase, and as the edges of doubt splintered under the growth of resolve, I understood this might just be our redemption song. This was our moment. And the night might never be the same again. As the curtain of illusion lifted, I closed my eyes, feeling relief wash over me like a gentle tide. Life, with all its tribulations, repeatedly fought to consume us, but here, together in this fragile moment, we stood defiantly against it. And in that forever echoing cry stamped with our collective heartbeat, I was reminded, every battle we waged was guided by love, as we faced the uncertain and the beautiful. In a galaxy of broken dreams blossoming into sparks of hope, I whispered fervently, together, we'll rise. And with those words echoing within my heart, the final thread of fear unraveled. Today was the day we chose to fight back.